Welcome to another edition of the Aussie Ideas Man. This is a response to the response. Once again, highlighting how the cretin is a poor thinker. It's just a fact of life. But by being a poor thinker, he's helping to deceive many people. And so I'll just try to encourage people to think a little more deeply about what they see. This one will be much shorter than the last one I made, so let's get into it.
Hello everyone, it's Steve with APTERA Owners Club.
First of all, I'll just like to say that by looking at where APTERA begins, and I'll use my cursor, it begins just in this blind spot here, where it comes out of nowhere. This is where I said there could have been a truck hidden, but it looks like it's a little further down than where I thought it began about here. So the distance is a bit longer, meaning my 15 miles per hour was probably inaccurate. It's more like 20 miles per hour. Still slow, nothing compared to 80 miles per hour on the highway and going up those 6% inclines maximum that the cretin has managed to say you won't go up any higher than 6% grade. In any case, it may be doing around 20 miles an hour, not 15. In either case, it still looks like a smooth sealed road. And when you get to the part where you see the driver, you'll notice his head is shaking too much for it to be a smooth ride. Let's keep going.
A few days ago we had that video looking at the footage that APTERA released about the Gamma going up a hill in a park in San Diego County, which turns out to be a pretty steep hill, and the video that we see here does not do justice to how steep that road really is. It reaches points where it's a 17-degree grade, and if you had a chance to look at some hills in your area with that Ride with GPS website, you know how steep a 17-degree grade.
Here's where his head's bouncing around. I'll backtrack just a little. Just look in relation to his head and this part of the door.
With that Ride with GPS website, you know how steep a 17-degree grade is. Anyways,
That's a lot of bounce. Okay, so now we get into the real reason for this response to his response.
Up that hill 3 times in a row without overheating, without even coming close to overheating. The temperatures remain stable throughout all 3 runs.
Now, in my first response, I mentioned that you can't allow gossip and lies to be included in proof, in evidence. And apparently the cretin never watches my videos because he's continued to include gossip and lies. We only see about, well, a little more than an eighth of a mile, and it's not even one run. The distance is 1.1 miles, so it's about 10% of one way. And yet he wants to include 6 miles, 6.5 miles of travel in the evidence. This is not right.
And did not stress the system. And what we were told again in that video by APTERA was that the cooling system in the Gamma is less powerful and less capable than the cooling system that's going to be put into the production unit. So the production unit should have absolutely no problem with thermal overload. Now, the new thing that we found out is that APTERA will have a radiator. It will have a radiator as well as belly cooling, both. And
This is not a new thing. And I've watched through this once, and he actually says how he was told at Fully Charged Live at the time that Gamma was revealed to the public. So this means Gamma is already fitted with this ridiculous idea of a radiator underneath the windshield wipers somewhere. I'll get into why it's a ridiculous idea, and I just can't fathom how the cretin can think that a radiator placed out of the way in such a manner could even work. I'll continue.
so here's a picture of the APTERA on top of the parking lot at that park, and you can see how high above the surrounding area this park is. And what happens is as we were told in the previous video when we went down and visited during fully charged. Daniel was telling us about the cooling system. There is cooling that's being pulled in from the cowl here. So the air will go in right here and be circulated.
I'll get some video footage of the time it was at Pininfarina and show you that the airflow over the top of the APTERA does not go inside that opening where the windshield wipers are. It just slides on by. Now, to pull it in, something has to suck it, and radiators don't suck. A radiator is like a brick wall in front of a vehicle so that air is virtually forced through it. And when the air is forced through the cores have such a large surface area of usually copper, which is a good conductor of heat, that you get a large surface area of metal to cool the liquid in the tubes that are touching the cores. This is how radiators cool. They don't suck, they are forced fed air by the very location that they're placed. Now, if you stick a radiator somewhere under the windshield wipers and close off the opening on any car, then that radiator becomes ineffective. Whatever flows through touching the cores is not going to cool at all.
Down, and my assumption was that it would be passed through the belly pan on the interior and then exit at the rear of the vehicle. And it appears as also a radiator. Maybe that's why the frunk is now gone, because that's where the radiator will be. So anyways, listen in on the conversation. I think he explains the HVAC system well, and we have a much better idea of how this thing works after talking to him. You work on the cooling system, right?
Yeah.
That's your main thing, right?
Yeah, the cooling and the HVAC system.
Okay. So can you explain to me how the cooling system works?
Yes. So we have the full belly pan, which is going to be, it's like something like 85% of the whole underbody of the APTERA it's going to be aluminum.
Okay.
So we have good heat transfer to the outside.
Okay.
And then when you're not moving, it is tricky.
Yeah. Because there's no airflow over it.
Yeah. So the panels themselves will actually cause airflow to happen. So
because of convection.
Yeah.
Okay.
Even then, that when you're really, really hot, that's not quite enough.
Yeah.
So we do have kind of some backup fans to pull air across actually the inside. So we use the inside to pull air across, and we reject.
So basically, the aluminum pan at the bottom has little tubes that the coolant flows through, right? And then usually it cools through the outside of the pan. But on a hot day, if you're DC fast charger, you're going to pull air over the thing internally. Okay. But what if it's just super hot air?
The way that it works is, so if it's super hot, then we'll actually run the HVAC system to cool the battery, and then all we have to do is cool the HVAC system. But at that point, you have a big enough temperature delta, you can still cool.
Oh, okay. All right. And where's the intake for the air?
It's going to be at the cowl.
Okay.
So it doesn't have to be big. It's not a whole lot of air that we are. And then it comes out here at the back. So it'll flow in there at the front, flow all the way out the back.
Okay. And so aerodynamically, does air want to go into the cowl anyway because of the way it is?
Not really. At the cowl, it's a vortice, and also back here, it's a bit of a vortice. So when you're driving, this whole system has no effect. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's really just when you're not moving that you need to just move some air around a little bit. You can turn it on.
Is the cooling system like pretty much figured out? So yeah, pretty much that's the design has been validated and locked down basically. Okay.
Do I need to fire him now?
Yeah, definitely. Hey, so I was wondering, I just learned about that inverter thing.
Yes,
that
one.
inverter.
Yes.
Is there
It
is there like one cooling system for all of them, or are they like a different cooling system circuits?
We have 3 cooling circuits.
Okay.
One is for the powertrain, so that is inverters and motors.
Okay.
So they're all the inverters and all motors
Are using one cooling circuit.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that is the higher temperature of the 3 circuits.
Yeah.
The battery circuit, so the battery has its own circuit, that's kept cooler, so it's below 60 degrees Celsius.
Okay.
We do that through a combination of skin cooling, but also we can use the HVAC system to keep it cool.
Okay.
So the 3rd circuit is the HVAC system. So because we have skin cooling, we don't have a traditional condenser at the front of the vehicle. So
when you're running HVAC on, like, let's say you're running the AC on this thing, you need a fan to blow over that thing.
No, so that's when we use cool. We have a liquid cooled condenser.
Okay,
right.
So you're using the belly pan cooling to
cool the HVAC system.
Oh, okay. When you're moving.
Sure. Constantly. If you're not moving, the belly pan still moves, right?
Okay. But how does that? So will that work on a hot day over like super hot asphalt?
So that's where the backup fans kick in. So when you drop below like 10 miles per hour, the fans will start to kick in.
Okay, well, thanks to Daniel for answering all our questions. Thanks for you guys for watching. Comments below.
It's a response to people catching them out on matters that don't work. They're just feeding you more snake oil as you go, oh, this isn't working. Well, just swallow some more. That's all it really is.
Is that it disrupts the aerodynamics of the APTERA. You can obviate that. You can still have a radiator and just have the air intake above here. Now this little lip here becomes.
But radiators don't suck. You can't suck more easily with something that doesn't suck. Try to use your brain.
And then I think it will go through the radiator, and my guess is you'll have airflow both above and below the belly pan cooling plate. But
it doesn't matter if you have airflow above and below. The airflow for a radiator isn't what cools anything. It's the airflow that hits the cores that cools the cores, and the cores are touching the tubes that have the coolant in them, and the coolant then cools. It's convection. The heat is transferred from the cores to the coolant, and it's copper, the best material for convection. So it doesn't matter where the air goes. The air is now hot, and it doesn't matter that the air from a radiator goes anywhere, whether it's above the batteries or below the batteries. It doesn't matter. The air is hot. So what's he talking about?
it appears that the belly pan cooling is supplemental to the radiator and not the sole cooling mechanism. So that was
Again, I say, if it's supplemental, why was that silly cartoon just showing in a very ridiculous manner that the skin cooling was the only cooling system? They are just reacting like they did with the DC charging. They are just reacting to people saying, my snake oil isn't healing me. How about you add something to the snake oil? This is basically what they're doing. They are reactive, and they treat people like gullible fools because pretty well know their audience are a bunch of gullible fools.
A very interesting development. So you can see here, the air intake will be underneath this windshield wiper. All right, so anyway, that was a really new development for me. They are planning on putting out details of the cooling system, and hopefully I will be able to visit APTERA in late September, and we'll get a lot of new footage and information to share with you.
The cretin isn't qualified to go and get new information from the factory. He's been a number of times and all he has done is swallow the snake oil. He's seen things right in front of his nose and has not picked up on it and called them out for the nonsense. You'll get nothing out of his visit, just like you have never got anything in the past. What I should add is maybe he should look around and count the Alafi motors that are waiting for this production, which is supposed to occur very shortly. Not only count the Alafi motors, count the Yazuki wiring harnesses waiting to go into machines. Count the seats, count the wheels and tyres, count the centre screens. See if they've got more than 12 AGVs when they originally announced they'd need around 50. Just count things. Have a look at how many solar panels they've made since the ones they made at Vista were proven to be inferior, and they've now decided to make superior solar panels. So count how many they've done. Ask them what they did with the 10 a day for months that they produced at Vista, now that they've been shown to be inferior and not fit for purpose. That's what investigative journalism's all about, because so many people have been there and just looked at an empty floor and not twigged to anything, not considered that something suspicious is going on. Well, I'll leave it at that. That's all from me. I'll try and keep this short. Bye for now and stay safe.